Welcome to the Built by Us podcast. My name is Jaime Arroyo, and I'm the CEO at Assets.
I'm Kirsten McWilliams, and I'm the marketing manager at Assets.
For those of you who don't know Assets, we're a nonprofit based in Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. And this year, we're celebrating a huge milestone. We're celebrating 30 years of providing resources and training to support the entrepreneur and small business community of Lancaster.
And over the course of those 30 years, we've worked alongside so many amazing entrepreneurs from our community. The idea for the podcast was born out of the need to tell the stories of the small business entrepreneurs that we meet on a regular basis and provide a platform for them to share their stories, lessons learned, insights, and the journey they've been on to become small business owners.
In the first episode, you'll hear from myself, Kirsten, Mike Mason, our Chief Program Officer, and Chelsea Christmas, our Community Engagement Coordinator. We share a little insight on Assets' mission and why and how it resonated with us.
That's right. We also share stories of personal connections we have with entrepreneurship in our own lives. In addition, we dive a little deeper into Assets' history, how the organization was started, the amazing things we're doing today, and our vision for the future of Assets.
Without further ado, let's start the episode.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
My name is Mike Mason. I'm the Chief Programs Officer here. I've been here for a little over a year and a half. And my role is to lead our lending teams, our training teams, and our impact consulting teams. And I just love the work that we do. What drew me here from Philadelphia a long time ago probably was the logo and the colors. No, I think I've been stalking Assets since, 2015, the social enterprise pitch. Some friends of mine were a part of the social enterprise pitch. They did not win. I'm still a little bitter to this day, but I'm getting over it. But I'm like, what is this? What's happening? What are they doing? This is fascinating. And I was compelled by the mission to really highlight social enterprises in our community. And so once again, from North Philly and West Philly, 20 years ago, I moved here, and my dad, way back when, was an entrepreneur. He had a business called Jeans and Things in Philadelphia. He had a storefront. He had jeans and things in there. He sold like women's clothes and men's clothes. He also had a hair salon, no experience in hair, but he hired somebody who did, provided jobs in the storefront he was doing. I had a hair business in there. And then also later on in life, he had a 40th Street Produce Junction, where more of a social enterprise. He actually wanted to, well, I'll say this, he had a pain point. His pain point was the fact that his mom and people who were senior citizens were paying high dollar for like really, really bad produce in West Philly. He's like, this is a problem. They're not getting quality produce. They're paying a lot of money for it. I got a solution. He goes to the produce junction, cut out the middleman, and say, I'm going to pay and buy the produce in bulk and sell it for a cheaper price. And he's like, you know what? This feels really good. I'm like, I don't want to get up on Saturday mornings to pack this stuff. But I'm like, you know what? There's a missional component. I'm like, you know what? There's something special happening here. And so I just realized that in the mission of Assets, and what also brought me here was like my dad's vision to really be self-sufficient, but also impact his community in West Philly. My grandma had a daycare in the home that, had its unique challenges. And I've seen her do well financially, but also like some hardships on not being resourced properly on her business journey. And my wife is a baker, 3-year entrepreneur, baker, and she makes great cookies. And so I'm like, it's kind of been all around me. And so I'm just glad to be able to support people who look like me and also I care deeply about. So that's kind of what got me here to Assets.
My name is Chelsea Christmas. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Assets. My role is simply just to get entrepreneurs connected to the resources, whether it be at Assets or within the community. I'm also a business owner. I own At Her Core Fitness. And my why, I would say, I think it goes back to my grandmother. She was the seed planter of entrepreneurs within our family. She owned a business called Nellie's Place. It was a restaurant right on Vine Street, right up the street from Assets, which is so so she owned a business and it didn't last long. It was like maybe a year that she was in business. But I just think it was just a lack of access to resources and needing like the funding that she needed to run the business. She passed away in December, but her legacy continues on. My sister and her husband launched a business recently called Taste and Toast. So it continues to be a thing within our family. So I think really what brings me and ties me to the mission here at Assets is just that. The fact that people see that this can be a possibility for them and that they know that the resources are available to them.
Beautiful. Yeah. My name is Kirsten McWilliams. I'm the marketing manager at Assets. I've been here for almost 3 years, started in September 2020 during the pandemic. So it's really cool to see how Assets has grown for the past 3 years that I've been with the team. I'm super proud of our growth, and I'm excited to where we're going in the future. And my why, or what about Assets' mission resonated with me so much, was what Chelsea said, like providing resources and knowledge and a place to learn that entrepreneurs can rely on. A lot of the times we talk with entrepreneurs and they feel like they're alone in this, and it's really hard because you don't know where to go for help. But business resource providers like Assets, we exist to help entrepreneurs, especially women and BIPOC entrepreneurs, where historically those resources weren't accessible, like what your dad went through and experienced. So yeah, and like a lot of us, in my own story, I have personal connections with entrepreneurs in my family, and I didn't really realize that until like years working at Assets. Like a couple years in, I was like, oh, that's right, my dad did own a business. He owned a employment agency, and he ran it in our own house. Like I didn't even I was like,
Wow.
duh, yeah, my dad was an entrepreneur. And his own sister is also an entrepreneur, runs an employment agency out in Houston, Texas. And then bringing it all the way back to my great-grandpa on my paternal side, he was a farmer, and he started out as a sharecropper, but he was able to grow some produce on the side while being a sharecropper, sell that in like the downtown area, and save money for himself, and was able to buy a couple of plots of land in Mississippi that our family still owns today. Don't know what we're going to do with that land today or moving forward, but that's just shows the legacy that he put down and put forth. And he was able to get out of the crazy situation of being a sharecropper, because a lot of times people were stuck in that and there was no way out of being a sharecropper. But he just took some time on the side and saved money, and he really wanted to provide land and a place for his family to grow and thrive. So we still have that land today. So pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of my great-grandpa. Yeah, shout out to Minzy.
Oh, that is awesome. It's so cool to hear the different stories and connections that brought us all to an organization that allows us to pay it forward to other entrepreneurs. And the rest of our team also shares very unique stories when it comes to entrepreneurship and our why to fulfilling our mission. So we work with some really cool people. My name is Jaime Arroyo. I'm the CEO of Assets, officially as of June of 2022. So I've been in this role for a grand year already. But I actually was at Assets beginning back in 2016. I actually started originally as a volunteer. Prior to that, I was in the world of banking. So my story is a little interesting because I grew up in Lancaster City, was the first person in my family to go to and graduate college. And quite frankly, just wanted a career where I was going to sit in some cushy office. I was going to wear a fly suit, make some good money. And I was just like, I want to make bank. So I went to work for the bank and had a great career in banking, was doing very well. And I actually met a guy by the name of Daniel Falcone, who's a local entrepreneur here. And he had a brief stint of working at the bank, and fate had it that as a floater, I would go to different branches throughout the county, but I kept going to the branch that he was working at that summer. And he was the first one to introduce me to the concept of entrepreneurship. He would tell me about real estate, and he was just like, you should really go buy this book. It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which from a personal finance standpoint, probably wouldn't recommend it. But it was very inspiring. And what I did is I went to Barnes & Noble that evening, picked up the book, and it was probably the first book that I read from front to back since grade school. And I was just inspired. I felt like I learned about these secrets about how do you take control of your destiny through entrepreneurship. I continued as a career. Fun fact, Danny actually left the banking 3 months later because he was like, I can't do this. I need to go work for myself. And fast forward, for those of you in the community that know Daniel Falcone, he has a bunch of restaurants, owns Lancaster Cigar, and a bunch of other businesses in the community. So shout out to Danny for making it happen after a brief stint at the bank. So I actually went on to have a pretty good career in banking, most notably as a mortgage loan officer. And even there, I started to realize the systemic barriers that existed within communities that don't have access to resources. So as a mortgage loan officer, I typically got paid by a percentage. So the more loan volume I did, the larger the loan, the bigger the paycheck. However, if I wanted to help people from my community that most of the time were first-time home buyers, maybe didn't have all the resources they needed to go through the mortgage process, even though it took 10 times more work, I didn't get paid as much. It was a much smaller paycheck. So I was disincentivized to help the very community that I came from. And I thought that there could have been a better way. So fast forward, I met this wonderful woman by the name of Jess King, who was at the time the executive director of Assets, who was trying to recruit me for this microloan program that they were starting, or they had started, and they wanted someone with some banking experience to do this. And she pitched the idea of Assets to me, and I was like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not too sure about this nonprofit life. But I'll come back as a volunteer. So I started volunteering at the time, which was their learning circle, now our idea incubator, and just fell in love with the mission. I thought it was just such a cool opportunity to really use your skill set for good. And then I got the opportunity to help with the social enterprise pitch, which was a Shark Tank style competition for social enterprise businesses and coaching some of the participants. And that, to me, using your word, Mike, was a game changer. It's just like, there is this new way of doing business that no one else is talking about when you get to focus not only on just making some money, but taking care of people and the planet at the same time. That was just phenomenal. So I was very excited. And I told Jess, I was like, whenever a position opens up, let me know. And then fast forward a couple months, I got this program manager position, took a pretty significant pay cut to come to Assets, but I was just super excited. And it was at Southern Market, which is where we're located today, but not the same Southern Market. We were the last tenants to be there before the revitalization. My first desk was this old side table they put out of storage, and really, really cool to see, fast forward becoming the director of community lending. And now the CEO. Has been cool to be a part of this journey with Assets and the team that is making it all happen today. The reality is, while we have a rock star team today, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. So I mentioned that Southern Market, where we're located today, is a revitalized market, a building that really, one of the first times I heard about the idea of it being revitalized into a food hall, an economic center, a center for entrepreneurship, was from Jess King when she was the executive director who worked with other community community leaders to really make that idea come into fruition. But it didn't start there. So Assets was actually started back in 1993 by an organization called MEDA, Mennonite Economic Development Agency. Lancaster County, we love our acronyms. Assets used to stand for a service for self-employment training and support.
Wow.
We no longer go by that name.
Yeah. Much shorter.
Yeah, we just go by Assets, which is a pretty cool name. So that's good. And actually had approximately 25 different chapters throughout the country, including one in Mexico. But over
Canada.
time, and Canada,
Yeah.
yes. And even though we started off with that many, it's dwindled down through mergers. Unfortunately, some didn't all make it through. But right now there's 2 that's left. The one right here in Lancaster and one out in Toledo, Ohio, which is still offering training services for entrepreneurs. So shout out to our sister organization out in Toledo, Ohio. But with us being here today, still 30 years, celebrating 30th anniversary this year, it's an opportunity to really show that we've been able to have a successful organization, not only because we have some cool people that have been a part of the mission, but because of the entrepreneurs that we serve that help build this community that we get to experience here in Lancaster. So in addition from starting back in 1993, since then, we've had significant milestones that really have shaped Assets as an organization today. Kirsten, do you want to talk about some of those milestones that we've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, sure. So, so from 1996 to 2010, we ran one basic course It was called the Business Design and Management course. It was a 12-week course that ran 4 times a year. We've grown since then. And in 2017, Assets officially became CDFI certified. As the Chief Program Officer, would you like to explain what a CDFI is?
CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institution. It really makes sure that we receive earmarked dollars to make sure that those funds go to underrepresented entrepreneurs in certain areas and locations in our county. And make sure that our target market, women and BIPOC entrepreneurs, get the funding they need to help grow and scale their businesses. So it's really a big deal to be a CDFI and to be known to say, we exist to make sure that money goes into their hands and not just to everyone, but to certain people who typically have not gotten access to funds historically.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in addition to that, in 2019, like I said, from 96 to 2010, we had one basic course. But what happened in 2019 was really simplified our 3 core program departments, which was entrepreneur training, and that runs under the WBC Women's Business Center, and community lending, what Mike just described, and impact consulting, which ran under Measure What Matters. So 2019 was like the start of what was coined the Assets 2.0, where we kind of just streamlined everything and made more clarity around our offerings and services to our entrepreneurs. And in 2022, we moved back to Southern Market. So that was a huge milestone. Really cool to be in this really new, revamped Southern Market and see entrepreneurs down in the food hall kind of create a dream that they've been working on and make it come to life. So yeah, and then of course 2023 this year we celebrate 30 years. So yeah.
No, we've come a long way. We've done a lot.
Yeah. I think it's just cool to be able to walk downstairs and actually know them by first name basis.
Yeah.
Their story, their background, how they're trying new food items. It's just really cool to see them actually start making income, profit, and what it's doing. You see their families working together with them. It's just really cool to see people who you actually get to know actually build a business right downstairs from your office. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And going back to our different departments as well, one of the cool things about Assets is that we realize you can't just help a business through one angle. You need all these different components. So when we have entrepreneur training is because you need the resources and the education to be able to develop a business plan to really come up with a good, solid foundation. You need access to money. Money is the blood that runs through a business and makes it possible. And being able to measure social and environmental performance is something that we have an expectation of businesses these days. So understanding that businesses have a bigger role to play than just providing or making capital or making profit, we expect more of them. We want them to make our neighborhoods better. We want them to have a better, more sustaining effort in our environment. So, being able to have all that housed under one roof is certainly something special at Assets. This episode is built by Cargus Systems. Cargus is an employee-owned software company offering business software implementation, support, and customization since 1988. Driven by its purpose of shared success, Cargus gives back to the Lancaster community through STEM initiatives, art programs, event sponsorships, and more. Visit Cargus.com to see what makes Cargus a reliable software partner and one of PA's best places to work.
Yeah, so we can move into the next segment of where is Assets today? And I could ping pong it to Mike and he can tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think, it's really a unique time thinking about being around for 30 years and serving our community for 30 years. I think there's one major shift I'll highlight is that we're really making a shift to focus on not just helping the entrepreneur build a great business, but also build a great life. And so I think whether it's through our training classes and cohorts and seminars, workshops that are happening on a monthly basis, or even our lending products, is thinking about how does this serve the individual also, and how can we help the individual steward what's happening as they're actually building this business. So I think right now in the future is really enhancing the quality of life of entrepreneurs through our offerings, and also by helping to build a really vibrant community of entrepreneurs here at Assets. So I'll pause there. Any thoughts or reflections on that? Yeah.
Chelsea, you've been joining our team as an entrepreneur. How would you describe the environment or the Assets environment today in the community?
Yeah. So I think I also went through assets programming myself. So it's been a different experience being on the other end as an employee now. So for me, I think it's driving me more towards the mission. Like, I feel like I knew about assets. Of course, I knew like what they did because of what you guys were helping me with. But actually being a part of it now has been a completely different story for me. I think in a really inspiring and empowering way, because I get to people, I like to see myself as a leader within the community, and for people to see me now as an employee at Assets, they see the reality for them too. Like they have access now too to these resources. So it's a really big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain key ingredients that I think that what makes Assets special, and I think you are personification of that, where you make people feel welcomed. So entrepreneurs, that whenever there's barriers or you're going through a tough journey, you want to go to someone that you can trust, that makes you feel welcome, and that you nurture. And you've been doing a great job of that at Assets, and it's been cool and you do it because you have this lived experience of, I know what it's like to go through exactly what you're going through. Yeah.
Yeah, and that speaks to like the value of having you on the team as well. You can give us a different perspective that we wouldn't have known prior without you being on the team. You can give us the other side of, you could walk us through what is the journey of someone going through assets programming, and also tell us how we can improve as well with the things that we offer and how we offer them as well. So that brings such a extreme value to our team as well. So, yeah.
I think the unique lens that I have, especially sitting in discovery calls, it's just really an opportunity for me to also say I've been in your seat as well, and still am in many ways. Like, I'm still continuing to listen and learn for myself. So this is an opportunity for me to continue to be curious, so that I can collect that data and bring it back to our team, and so that we can continue to do the work that we do.
And a shout out to Mike too, because one of the things you've been leading is this human-centered approach to our programs and services. Do you want to talk a little bit about those efforts?
Yeah, I think too, it's really about realizing that we have expertise, but we aren't the experts. And so really thinking about, wait a second, what's the entrepreneur thinking about going through our programs? And I think hiring Chelsea was one part of that, but also realizing, can we listen and collaborate with our clients to build with them versus just for them? And so I think we really want to make sure that we're thinking about the person in every phase of business, what are their challenges, what are their needs, and how they want to be a resource. So somebody may want to be a part of a class like 4 times a year or 1 time a year, for 4 weeks straight or for 10 weeks straight. And so understanding that we may not have the best solution initially, but listening to our clients and saying, what do you really need and how do you want to be a resource is the key for us here at Assets.
Yeah. It's just really this mindset shift. One of the conversations we've had very early on when I came back to Assets was, do we help the entrepreneur or do we help the small business? And when we started having conversations about some of the entrepreneurs that have gone through Assets programming, and some that have started multiple businesses, some that maybe didn't succeed in the business, but have become, have gotten great jobs because of the skill set that they learned at Assets, we landed on that we don't help the small business. The small business is the vehicle that they're using. We're helping the entrepreneur behind the business. And that's the human-centered approach to making sure that when we focus on the person behind everything, everything else will work out. And that's really the mission, right? Like the goal is for economic prosperity for everyone to be successful and thrive. So being able to focus on the person, you guys have been doing an excellent job in implementing that and living that out through practice.
Yeah, so we just talked about what Assets looks like now, and ways we're improving with our offerings and services. And now we're looking to the future of how we could continue to evolve and better provide and meet the needs of the entrepreneurs in this community. So I'll cue it up to you, Jamie, to talk about what does Assets look like in the future.
It's
for another 30 years.
So let me pull out my crystal ball. I don't know about the next 30 years, but I think the direction that we're going to head in is a very special one. So as we talked about, as far as where Assets is today, we have this human-centered approach to how we're doing programs and services. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the entrepreneur themselves. And when we did that, as Mike mentioned, we started doing a lot more listening than talking over the past couple of years. And by doing more listening, what we heard is that the number one need that entrepreneurs have been asking for is equitable access to capital. I put equitable in front of that because access to capital has always been the thing that, banks or other CDFIs love to talk about, but sometimes they happen in a traditional sense that doesn't meet the needs for everyone, especially when you're an entrepreneur, that you're bootstrapping, you're trying a bunch of different things. The last thing you want is to fit this clean box that financial institutions try to place out there. Equitable access means creativity, it means innovation, it means customized solutions based on what the entrepreneur's needs are at that moment. A good example of something that we've been doing recently is pairing loans with grants. So something we did a few months ago has been soft piloting a new loan product where up to $10,000, an entrepreneur can get this loan at a 1% fixed interest rate, and then they can also get a 30% grant match on top of that.
You got to just stop for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I love that.
That is insane.
Yeah.
1% plus grant money. Like, who's doing that?
No one. No. No one. But so that sounds great. And it sounds like we're just giving away free money. But that was a clear response. One, from listening to the entrepreneurs, what is the need? The second thing was what's happening in the environment. So when we look back, equitable access is like, hold on, how do we give some of this grant money away, right? Give some free cash. That's always nice as an entrepreneur. But two, interest rates have been going up. Inflation has been at record highs. Everybody in traditional finance has been raising interest rates. It's been more expensive to borrow. So we were just like, as a CDFI, what if we went the other way? What if instead of raising our rates, we lowered them and we gave a ridiculously low rate of 1%? And that's fixed. So that is a clear response to what we're hearing from entrepreneurs. And that is what's special about assets. So when it comes to moving in the future, it's doing things like that. It's making sure that we're leading with listening first and making sure we're being responsive to what those needs are. In a perfect world, what I would like to see assets is we're impacting more people. One of the beauties about the region that we get to work in and play in is that we have very similar communities that surround Lancaster, whether it's Reading, whether it's York, Harrisburg, Lebanon. As a CDFI, we're actually certified in these communities to lend out capital. One thing I'd like to see assets is to expand regionally to provide these same services that have allowed entrepreneurs to flourish in Lancaster, flourish in these other communities that are starting to see the very similar trends that we've seen in Lancaster over the past couple of decades. So maybe not the next 30 years, but at least the next 2 to 4, a little sooner. I'd like to see us do a little bit more work in these communities to help and impact more people.
So yeah, for our next segment, we'll talk about what is this podcast that we're on, the Built by Us podcast. What does that mean, and why did we start it, and what is it all about? So yeah, I could cue it up to you, Chelsea. Start with that.
Yeah. So I think the one thing that I loved about Assets before coming in and now being a part of Assets is the way that we capture entrepreneur stories. And the podcast is really just that, another way to capture the stories of the entrepreneurs that we work with.
Yeah. Yeah. And to touch on that, it's just another engaging way to capture those stories. You get to see the person's face. You get to see the sparkle in their eyes. You get to hear the tone of their voice and the excitement that they speak in when they're talking about the milestones and achievements that they've reached in their entrepreneurial journey, or hear how crushed they might be when they talk about the challenges or the hard lessons that they had to learn over the years of being an entrepreneur. So yeah, we just wanted to bring another cool way of telling stories in an engaging way in a new format, so you can really see the entrepreneurs for who they are and hear their stories in their own voices. So that's one of the big reasons why we wanted to bring this podcast to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And going into why Built by Us as a name, one of the things that, I've been very lucky to see the growth of the Lancaster community over the last couple of decades. But when I pinpoint the why behind that, I keep going back to entrepreneurship. I keep thinking about the small business owners, the entrepreneurs that have taken the risk to start businesses in our Lancaster community, and not only take the risk for themselves, but have also grown them to create jobs and just positively impact neighborhoods. So when we think about an equitable and ethical economy, I think of it's built by us, and us are the entrepreneurs that have built this community. So that's why the podcast is named Built by Us.
Love that. I think entrepreneurship is so important for communities to have like a sense of place and belonging. So many places that I love to frequent, like in Lancaster, are not like these large, massive, like chain places to go and visit. It's like one or two people that may own it. Family could own it, but it's like they started it years ago with little money or some resources. And the reality is it's unique to Lancaster. And I want to go there because it's unique to Lancaster. And I feel like, man, because they're positioned at this location on this corner, I want to now go and visit every single, and I feel like this is a place where I feel like I belong here too. So I think it's important to understand that it's a vehicle to also help create a better sense of belonging in place for people who look different than me or the same as me. So I think it's an important part of just making it feel really, really good. As the kids say, like vibey, like it has good vibes. You know?
Yeah.
I will say all the different businesses here probably get about half my paycheck every week because, you're constantly wanting to not only spend your money in good local businesses, but also they create such great work environments that you can go and just like hang out and get to know the business owner and run into friends and family. So it's been just a really cool way of building a community here in Lancaster that you don't always get, and to your point around chains and, there's always a place for those types.
Most definitely.
But what makes Lancaster special is that we know the business owners and that's something that you can't replace that authenticity.
Yeah. And I'll say, I live in New York on the other side of the river. But before I even worked at Assets, I was coming to Lancaster every weekend before I even knew Assets existed. So that just speaks to the speciality of what Lancaster provides and the small businesses that are here. And it just makes Lancaster County so much more unique. And yeah, it made me want to come to Lancaster. And I don't even live here. So
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great first episode. We hope you enjoyed it as well. Tune into the next episode of the Built by Us podcast. Kirsten and I will be sitting down with local artist and entrepreneur Keisha Feeney. You may know her work from around town, including the mural outside of Rachel's Creperie and many more.
Lastly, you're invited to join Assets 30-year celebration, Assets at 30, on September 12th, 2023 at Southern Market. The program will run from 6 to 8:30 p.m. and doors will open at 5:30. It'll be a convening of innovators, entrepreneurs, community leaders who are passionate about small business and ethical entrepreneurship. We hope to see you there. You won't want to miss out. This is the Built by Us podcast, brought to you by Assets. Visit us at assetspa.org to learn more about the products and services we provide. And you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.